When I tested the iPhone 14 Pro Max against Samsung's last S22 Ultra, it was a clear winner. The iPhone took better video, it took better night shots, it was a way more stable camera. But this new S23 Ultra is a direct response to Apple. Samsung's dialed up the resolution to an astronomical 200 megapixels and focused on taking true 8K video, brighter night shots, and completely overhauling the stabilization system. So we've got 12 camera categories, and through them we're going to see if Samsung's actually done enough to completely turn the ship around and take that crown. So, starting off with the selfie camera, because Samsung's fitted the S23 with a new one, the video quality definitely looks like a step in the right direction. You can see my face texture, you can see my beard detail really clearly. I'm impressed. I was even slightly taken aback by how decent the video looks in low light. It's still not quite got the smoothening, anti-grain power of the iPhone though. Which is enough for me to say that Samsung is still behind at this, just not nearly as much as they used to be. And then if you flick over to selfie photos, it's a different story entirely. It's a bit of a weird one, in that the S23 Ultra actually has a lower resolution front camera than the S22 Ultra that came before it. But there's something quite magnificent about how it always seems to land. I've taken over 300 selfies on both of these phones, and thanks to the new dual pixel autofocus on Samsung, not a single one of my S23 ones are out of focus. I mean, the iPhone is already pretty good at this, but every now and again when even that struggles, Samsung's got it. Plus, it gets skin tones spot on, brightening and smoothing your face a little to make you the center of attention. It sharpens up face details like eyelashes and beards, but it does so while nailing that balance between wanting a crispy, detailed, realistic photo and then going for so much realism that you're sat there evaluating your entire skincare regimen. Samsung can now also instantly cut you out of your photos by just holding down on the screen, but the iPhone's end result is in a different league altogether. Like literally, good enough to instantly use that cutout in a YouTube thumbnail, for example. So, that's 1 point each, which means Samsung's already doing a lot better than it was last year. And it gets better, because then I decided I need to see this new stabilization system, because the S23 Ultra has both an improved software-based stabilization, combined with the lens itself having 2 times the physical optical image stabilization. It's got to do something. And let's put it this way, I could not believe the difference from last year. I'm so used to testing brand new, revolutionary video cameras, only to put them next to the iPhone and go, oh, right. Never mind then. This is different. The minute you open this phone's camera, it becomes very clear that stability is now a priority. And it actually does translate to video that is practically free from all the micro stuttering that comes with not being able to hold the camera still or having a bit too brisk of a walk. It's like having a car with a really powerful suspension. It just glides. And nowhere is that more apparent than when you're moving around at night, where the electronic image stabilization tends to fail. This has, in a single generation, gone from one of Samsung's key weaknesses to one of their key strengths. Even a full-on sprint isn't too much for it. This is the kind of jump that you don't expect to see within a 1-year timeframe. But where the company really fell behind in last year's tests were when you were using the phone's dedicated super steady modes, where it wasn't really that Samsung's was bad, it's more that Apple's action mode software is just really shockingly good. But yeah, Samsung's new stabilization system has entirely bridged that gap, enough to turn a previous loss in the stabilization category last year into a full-on victory. Hey, do you want to guess which phone wins the zoom category? It might be the iPhone. I don't know, it could be the iPhone. It's not the iPhone. I mean, while Apple has a single 3x zoom camera, Samsung has both a 3x and a 10x camera. And you can actually see the phone's improved AI layering in extra detail even after the shot has been captured. Now, I will say this, while the S23 Ultra Zoom is in some cases better than the S22 Ultra Zoom, this is far from what I would call a next-gen experience, like the stabilization was, or like some of the stuff you're about to see is. Which is to say, the phones are about equal at early magnifications. Samsung then falls behind between 3x and 10x, because while both phones have 3x optical zoom cameras, Apple's can see further. And then as soon as you pass 10x and Samsung's second zoom camera kicks in, it's a whitewash. It is a bit of a shame though, that, this is the 4th generation of phone for which Samsung's been quoting their 100x zoom abilities, and yet we're still not really close to 100x shots being usable. But make no mistake, the S23 Ultra is the better camera for all of those big zoomy folk out there. Like, just for fun, I tried zooming all the way into the moon, and the difference is not small. So at this point, Samsung is absolutely dominating. But if you had to put down money on one category being the end of that streak, it would be the quality of the video itself. The fact that Apple designs the chips for their phones and then has almost an entire year where they know everything about these chips to then build their software around them, compounded by the fact that they make such a small number of phones per year, means that they just have more time than any other company to make sure that their video processing pipeline is really optimized and that the video is reliable in every possible condition. And because video is one of the most complex things to master, more so than photos, I think this is where you most feel the fact that Samsung and most other Android companies have had to rush. Now, all that said, it takes a total of 5 seconds using the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra to see that this is the smoothest, least grain-filled video a Samsung phone has ever recorded. And one of the first things that I was really surprised to see is the real-time, high dynamic range in Samsung's video. So, have a little look at the sign in this shot. Because it's noticeably brighter than everything around it, it's overexposed on the iPhone. But Samsung has recognized the brightness of that sign and specifically dialed it down so that it still remains readable. So yeah. That's pretty huge. It's not enough for me to say that it's ahead of the iPhone, because like, if you go to a more extreme lighting environment, you can see the simple fact that Apple has spent more time tuning start to kick in those fringe cases. The way that Samsung goes about achieving its noise reduction in low light is by capturing multiple frames and then layering those frames on top of each other. It's usually strong, but if you then start to move your phone erratically, it doesn't get time to perform this properly and breaks down, revealing all the grain. Plus, Apple still remains slightly more detailed in almost all cases. It's getting closer than I ever expected it to be, to the point where Apple should be worried, but they do just edge it out for now. But then, Samsung does have a bit of a secret weapon this time, something that the iPhone just straight up can't do. 8K. Let me be very clear, 8K is not a little bit more than 4K. 8K is 4 times the number of pixels of 4K. And while this isn't the first phone that can shoot 8K, on everything I've tested it on over the last few years, it has been a clearly tacked on, janky experience. Samsung is saying it will be different this time. And they're kind of right. If you are shooting under really bright conditions, like broad daylight or under a really powerful lamp, then I can confirm that 8K is now a legitimate option that does add detail to already detailed 4K video. But then, in anything less than optimal lighting, you just end up with a technically higher resolution clip, but one that's actually grainier, because the phone just has more pixels to light up without enough light to know what to do with them. The way that Samsung talked about the 8K, I felt like this phone might be the turning point where the masses start using it. But having properly tested it, I think we'll be waiting at least another year to see the benefits. However, as any movie director will tell you, when it comes to video, audio is 50% of the package. So, which one sounds better? Well, it's actually pretty cool that Samsung has also silently upgraded the microphones on this phone. Not a huge update, but what you'll actually notice more is that because the speakers of the phone are now upgraded, when you're listening back to the videos taken on the phone, they now easily keep up with the iPhone. This is pretty